Adi Belan. I work for Appsflyer, the marketing measurement global leader. My role is VP R&D of the measurement unit. It's probably our biggest R&D unit. I'm basically out of Tel Aviv. First real job was waiting tables at an expensive restaurant in Tel Aviv. Actually paid very well. But I think what I most learned about from there was how to deal with all kinds of different people and understand what people are looking for and how to make them happy and feel good about their experience. My first real industry job was also a funny story. I got brought into the industry by a friend who went to a company called Flash Networks, and he brought me into his team and left the company 2 weeks later, which was a very interesting experience. But there, I think I learned a ton about how to understand what's important and what's not important, what works and what doesn't work. I was part of like a CTO team there that we worked mainly on prototypes. And it was really a great experience to be exposed to so many different projects and aspects. Metrics and measurement are like a double-edged sword. I think we should measure almost everything we can. And we measure a ton of metrics. We measure how much stuff costs. We have like a big AWS bill, so we have like really detailed measurement of that. We have a measurement of how customers adopt features, what do they use, what do they don't use. We measure our very closely the traffic and the scale in our system and like availability and everything you would think from an engineering aspect. And that's great, but for some cases, like it's for so many trees you can't see the forest kind of thing. And it's also need to be very careful that you really understand what the metrics and measurements mean. And we use them mainly as a signal. They're not, no single metric is like the golden one that will take the decision according to it. It's everything is like multidimensional. We're very, very careful about KPIs we decide on, because if you give people a KPI, they'll optimize for that. And that could create some weird optimizations and not exactly what you're looking for. So we use it more in a qualitative way and not necessarily quantitative. And we actually said that common sense is not that common. So even if you see a ton of metrics, it's still, does this thing even make sense? Because a lot of the times metrics are meaningless. A lot of the times they're a mistake, and it's very hard to tell. And we live in a time where there's so much information. Everything has a million metrics, right? I have like 100 dashboards I can look at, and they have numbers and trends and everything going up and going down. You really have to find the root cause and understand what's going on. And like correlation is not necessarily causality, and basically common sense is the best answer to everything. That's a good question. I think that like the first leadership or management role you transition into from an engineer is probably the hardest one. It's hard because a lot of the times you don't understand that it's not only a promotion. It's not like becoming a senior engineer instead of a junior engineer. It's a profession change. You need to do, you're expected and should do in your day-to-day things that are different from what you did as an engineer. You're not necessarily measured about the amount of deliveries you personally deliver and their quality. It's a more complex role. It's, I think, very hard for many engineers. Like a lot of the time the companies will take, here's our best engineer, let's put him as the team lead. That's not necessarily the best idea, because I think it's very important for people who stepping up to management roles from engineering is go, before you do the move, go and talk to a couple of the people who did the same thing in your company or in a different company and hear their experience. In Appsflyer, we're doing much better now in facilitating this. We have a setup training that let people transition into a team lead role, and we have a team lead community, and there's really a more supporting net of allowing them to do this transition. I think for the people thinking about it, I think the two most important things is understand it's a profession change. It's a promotion as well, but it's a profession change, and really talk to people who've done this transition and think, is this really for me? So forecasting the future is very hard to do. When I look at it, like from the last 15 years, if we'll take the past and try to forecast the future, teams are becoming more and more diverse and vertical, meaning 15 years ago, you had the development team, the quality team, the design team, the product team. Now you want to have all these people on the same team trying to use all their skills and different disciplines to get to the same goal, right? Each team is hopefully, but they have a logical scope or something that makes sense, and they can not completely, but most of the time run autonomously towards their goal. So I think this will probably continue, and we'll see even more disciplines into the same teams, maybe even support, biz dev, whatever, trying to do like mini companies within companies. I think the downside to that is that what this has caused, and together with maybe like the DevOps revolution, is that at least from the engineer standpoint, your life is much more complex than it used to. 10 years ago, you wrote your C or C++ code. If it compiled and you managed to build the thing, it would probably 99% of the time work fine in production. Now, our engineers need to understand about 15 different services and tools that they use, some of which it's a big abstraction of something very complex behind the scenes, and they have no idea how it works, and they're not expected to understand how it works, but makes their life very difficult. And they need to understand a little bit about design, a little bit about product, a little bit about the business, because all of these people are their interface, and they need to have like a common language with them. It's good for the team. I see the teams becoming more diverse, but it makes everything more complex. And I kind of find engineering teams or teams in general is like a smart organism. And I think that teams are already recognizing that complexity is the problem. And I think that the teams will find a way to solve that problem, or at least mitigate it. I'm a great believer in that if you let the team decide give them a goal, they'll find their way there and they'll navigate between the problems. There's a lot of stuff that can't be measured, and I wish it could be measured. I think that like in leadership and management, and the higher you go, a lot of the times it says, okay, I look at something, I see a problem, and I think that if I'll engineer the organization in some way, I'll solve the problem or mitigate it or something, and then we create different set of problems probably. So something that's really interesting is, can we measure the impact of like organizational change? Let's say, okay, I did like an org change, right? That's a lot of the times what happens in companies that are big and bigger. Can we measure the impact of that, or the positive or negative effect of that? It's very hard to do. I'm not sure it's possible. In general, measuring the impact of something, right? If we had like very exact formula that says, take the value, divide by effort, X the income it creates for the company, that's the impact of the fit. I would love to have that, because that would make a lot of discussions very easy, right? Product side of the company says, we have to do this by then and then, and you tell them why, what's the impact of that, and then there's a lot of sentences that start with I think, I believe, a customer asked that will do something, and then you say, or even worse, like we have a lot of something, which a lot is a number, is not like 10, 20, 100 million. I don't know what a lot is. So that's a lot of like the discussions I would like to like not have, and say, here we have a magic formula. This is impact is 517 and this is 403. So this wins. But we don't have that. From a personal perspective, I'd like to have like something more measurable about parenting, because you're always like thinking, am I doing the right thing by letting this go or insisting on something? Or I find a lot of common lines between parenting and leadership. Both are sometimes give you the biggest of joys and the worst of frustrations. So going back to the complexity problem, I think that if there was a startup solution that would take away some of that complexity without like hiding away too many of the controls, I would be very happy to at least try it out. I think it's very hard now for startups, at least to like add another tool to like an existing company's tech stack is not easy. You have to see that there's value, and that it's enough value that the team should know another tool, right? Before you can reduce complexity, you add complexity because, hey, there's another tool you need to use. Or so if there was something that engineers didn't need to know about, and it will take away some of the complexity and increase their productivity, then I would be very happy to try it out. Right, the most scary source we have is developer time, and it's obviously not optimally used for a million reasons. But even if I got like 10% more development time, it's like for every 10 people I hired another developer, which is in our like the economic weather now is getting harder and harder to do. And I got another developer without training them or teaching them or like them taking a vacation or something. It's just the same people. They have more context and they're more productive. So that would be amazing. If I had a good idea, I would start that startup myself. So I think when somebody talks to me about their idea or their product, then I think that the best in general in life, like honesty is like the best policy. I know you're a 3-person startup or a 10-person startup. It's okay to say we don't know. We don't have a solution for that. We only support this and this and that. It's in our roadmap, but frankly, I'm not sure we're going to get there. Like a lot of the times you only have like one chance in like integrating. If you think and the customer or together we think that it's not a good fit, it's better to like say, okay, let's revisit this 6 months from now or a year from now when we think it will bring value, instead of integrating, frustrating both sides. Getting a second chance is much harder than getting the first. I do sports, all kinds of sports. The common denominator between them is that it's not soccer or tennis or something like that. It's usually like some kind of action sports, because I find it like requires 100% concentration for me not to injure myself, and then I can totally forget about everything. So I go away for like a couple of hours, whether it's biking or surfing or doing anything like that. My real passion is like skiing, but that's really hard to do in our weather. So it only happens like once or twice a year. I think that like concentrating 100% on a certain something and forgetting about anything else is something that is getting harder and harder to practice, because we have so many distractions, specifically like phones, instant messages, kids, working from home, when people walk around behind you in the camera. We're all with some kind of concentration disorder. Focusing on a single thing is good.